I would like to introduce to you a new and important concept. Using your ear to do something unusual, all right? And what I mean by that is this pentatonic box that we're so used to has a very specific sound. And instead of worrying about all of the technical musical terminology of all these other substitution notes, I just want you to use your ear and also recognize some of these patterns and see if you like some of these sounds. So for example, in this shape, if I was just to alter one of the notes and play that shape, it would have a different sound, this kind of sound. All I did was I took this root note and I dropped it to the neighbor to the right, but only by a half step. And the idea of visiting your neighbors to the left or to the right is a really fun concept when you start getting into some of the weird notes, because you're really only ever a half step away from a chord tone or a safe zone. You know, the listener is always going to feel okay if you have conviction in some of these odd note choices if you go for it. So for example, if you're playing a pentatonic blues concept, but you say, hey, you know what, when I start this solo, I'm going to go right here. Some people are going to say, whoa, hey man, what's going on? I don't get it. But you say, listen, trust me on this. You're basically just from another country, you know, you say, this kind of idea is what I'm talking about. You're going to find these notes that are in between this box. And you're going to start using some of those, or some of these, or some of these. Basically, the box grows by 1 fret on either side, or you start using the stuff in the middle. It's really up to you, but I'm going to give you a few ways to start introducing this concept to you and then anybody who listens to you play. So here's one really cool way to introduce this first idea I showed you. Right? If we continue that down, we need to add this note again, and it exists right here. So we get this kind of sound. There's your root, but remember we added this low note, I mean we added the high note up here, but we can also do it as a low note here too. It's the same note. So, and then resolve to the root. So that's the idea, is that you can move something just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right and get these interesting ideas. That one has a cool sound because it sort of introduces this augmented sound, which is based on major thirds. You have that kind of sound, but if you're talking about major thirds, and we have the root of A here, the major third, the most common idea here would be this. But what if we wanted to introduce this note, which is right in between, right? This is this place where you pretty much don't go when you're playing this box. You avoid these middle notes, but if you do add this one right here on the G string, you basically get a dominant chord. You get this kind of sound. And if you add this note up here, you get this. And you can have all these other options of this 3-1-3 kind of thing with even a little slide like this. So that's a really cool sound, and you really shouldn't ignore these little specialty items because that's going to make you have a unique sound. And this last thing I'm going to share with you is a really cool thing that I love for pentatonic riffs, and it really is still the same thing that we do, all the same shapes. Check it out. These shapes are going to be changed by one note. They're either going to move up a little neighbor to the right by a half step or a neighbor to the left by a half step. So check it out. It'll go like this. Neighbor to the right, neighbor to the right. Now this one, because we're here, it's actually neighbor to the left we're going to start on. So it goes like this. Right? And if you wanted to keep that in another octave, you could do it like this. Or even but if you move these things around in a different randomized pattern like this, I'm just taking those shapes and I'm adding a neighbor to the right or a neighbor to the left. So this is the kind of stuff that you can have so much fun with, and it will really develop your personal style. So I really encourage you to explore it.